Shark attacks are on the rise. Around the world, the threat from this perfect killing machine has never been greater. So can humans and sharks coexist? Or should they be hunted down to make the sea a safer place? Tonight, we put sharks on trial. Sharks terrify us. They trigger our deepest primeval fears. Out of your depth, vulnerable. You're open to sudden attack by a monster you don't even see until it's too late. In 1975, the film Jaws seized upon our intense fear of shark attack and became a box office smash. Jaws hardened our attitude to sharks overnight. The world became obsessed with these super predators. Sharks became public enemy number one.
To many people, it became science fact, almost like a documentary film wrapped up as a movie. It's driven this almost passionate hatred for sharks, almost the exact polarised opposite of those of us who have a passionate love for them, and that's been extremely damaging.
The impact of Jaws still lingers today, powering our fears that a shark may strike anytime, anywhere. After finishing university, Jo Ballantyne from Kelso, Scotland, decided to go travelling. On Australia's Gold Coast, she worked at a water sports centre on the Nerang River.
Nerang River is a quiet place, fairly wide river, very dark waters, but very tranquil.
Before continuing her journey, she decided to go for one last swim.
When I was just swimming across and about halfway, I felt a huge, massive force just hit the side of me. That's when I knew straight away exactly what it was for something that powerful to actually throw me across the water. And it shook my leg, it must have been just seconds, and then let go. And that's when I saw just blood around me.
Jo had been attacked by a 2-metre black-tip whaler shark.
It was almost like someone had sliced me open with a Stanley blade, and where the shark had actually shaken its jaw, that was very much a mess. And it was just millimetres from my main artery, so you could actually see almost the insides of your leg.
Jo recovered from her injuries, but to this day she lives with the attack.
Every time I get in the water, no matter where it is, it still petrifies me that I will be the unlucky one, that it could attack again.
For many, there is a simple way to stop people being attacked by sharks. Hunt down the culprits.
Poor, don't it smell a bit that...
Vic Hislop is a shark hunter.
They're 12-foot tiger sharks.
He has spent a lifetime catching and killing large sharks.
Out of 350-odd species of shark, I only concentrate on the dangerous ones. I always have. That one's just about frozen now. I'll wrap him in plastic then too, to stop dehydration. Same as this one. See, this is some of the best equipment in the world for catching big sharks. When you start talking about sharks that are 20 foot in length and would weigh in the vicinity of 2.5 tonne, it's a pretty specialised field. Everything's got to be perfect, right down to the hooks being needle sharp, even mutton fat on the point of the hooks to make them penetrate. There's so many things. It's a dedication.
Vic feels passionately that there has never been a greater call for his hunting expertise.
This is all my records of shark attacks that should have been avoided. There's records in all these cases here like you wouldn't believe. Yeah, these boxes here, these are all shark attacks. You know the biggest thing that worries me is when I die, all this work, the lifetime I've put in to bring out the truth, what's going to happen to it? Just get burnt. It's all wasted, and that's sad. It just doesn't make sense to me. There's too many people being killed by big sharks.
Vic considers it his duty to warn people about the dangers of shark attack. His shark show highlights the threat he believes they pose to humans.
What chance do you have in the water with a shark like this? That entirely depends on the shark, because you're not in control. There's nothing you can do. They're too good at what they do.
The words beach, victim, and shark still chill us to the bone. Perhaps with good reason, as attacks are on the increase. On Australia's south coast, the good weather of the Christmas holidays sees people flock to Adelaide's West Beach. The Gullberg family from Sweden had just arrived in the country. It was their first visit to the beach.
Yes, I was lying on my back, on my elbows, you know. So I just had a good view over the ocean and the kids. And I was a bit annoyed. I remember that because there was a boat and the engine was just going on and on and on, and they moved around and there were a few guys in the boat.
18-year-old Nick Peterson and his friends were towing each other on a surfboard behind a boat, just 300 meters from the shore.
It was just like a perfect day, quite similar to today, like really warm, not a cloud in the sky, and the water was just crystal clear.
On the boat, the boys were deciding who should go next on the surfboard.
Nick had come from the driver's seat to the very end of the boat, raced there, taken his shirt off, and then looked at me and said, "Oh, do you want to go in next?" And I could really tell with the enthusiasm in his eyes that he just really wanted to go in there. So I was like, "No, mate, you go for it." And so then he's just jumped in, and then I have just seen this really big grey object.
Then I suddenly saw a big fish just jumping out of the water and splashing and just behind the boat.
I've heard this really, really ear-piercing scream, and then I've seen Nick and the shark much higher than the boat, just launched up.
And then I realized that the boat engine was down, and the guys in the boat had some oars or paddles, and they were trying to hit something.
We tried to do everything we could. I mean, we hit it with oars, called OOO, which is the emergency number here. But apart from that, there's not a lot you can do, especially if the shark is bigger than your boat.
And just after that, it's calm. Just calm.
And then I've just seen it with Nick's arm in its mouth, just going really, really slowly, just gliding through the water. And it was just so surreal, and we just didn't know what to do.
Nick was eaten by a 5.5-meter great white shark. His remains were never found. After the attack, there was much debate. Should the killer shark be hunted and destroyed?
They don't want to kill it because they don't want to upset some people. Well, what's more precious, shark life or human life? I mean, you have to weigh it up.
Any shark close in waters posing a threat to human life should be destroyed.
I mean, what would be wrong in a case like that with bringing in the army from a helicopter and shooting the bloody shark? But because we've been so conditioned, we suddenly think that shark's got all this right to life. There is something wrong there.
Surprisingly, Nick's father took a different view.
We do not advocate indiscriminate killing of sharks. They're to be admired and appreciated and respected, and Nick knew that.
Would you be so compassionate if it was your child? It's a controversial question. Do sharks have a right to live in areas of the sea where they pose a deadly threat to us? According to the International Shark Attack Files, the number of unprovoked shark attacks has grown steadily over the past century. The 1990s saw 480 reported shark attacks. Since 2000, there have already been 327, a 35% increase. Are sharks guilty of becoming more bloodthirsty? Or could there be other reasons why more people are being attacked?
For a start, the amount of jet-set tourism to parts of the world where people never used to go before has increased dramatically. Secondly, we've also seen over pretty much the same time period a huge increase in the amount of activities which could bring people into conflict with sharks. Surfing, diving, windsurfing, the list is endless.
As we examine if humans can coexist with sharks, we'll look at what can be learned from recent cases. Is it possible to identify a pattern in unprovoked attacks by sharks, and whether their behavior is changing as man and shark come into increasing contact?
Well, we're at Nahoon Reef, East London, South Africa. It's a deep water reef break. The reef extends well out into the sea. It's a well exposed point, which makes it both good for surfing and good for sharks. Because it's so exposed and so far out to sea, the wave as it comes in loses very little power. It comes in and delivers full strength onto the reef. Now a shark, if he's out in deep water and he comes past East London, he's going to impact Nahoon Reef pretty much.
Some days I'm out there and you just get a very bad vibe, you know, and I'd have one or two waves and I'll come in. I've been out here with a few surfers and we've just all had a bad vibe and okay, all come in, you know. And I just believe you've got to listen to that sixth sense down here. This place, as Nick told you, is kind of notorious, so there's always it's always on your mind because of the amount of incidents that happen. So it's like going for a walk to a game reserve, you know. And that's what we're going to do right now.
There are three categories of unprovoked shark attack. By far the most common is the hit and run.
Jesus, Father God, Holy Spirit, I just thank you for this lovely day at Nahoon Reef, Lord. And as we paddle out, Lord, I pray the blood of your protection over us, Father, each and every one of us, and in Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Bless you, Fox. Have a good one, brother.
Hit and run attacks occur mainly in the surf zone. Since 1980, sharks have attacked over 350 surfers. At Nahoon Reef, the surfers are only too aware of this threat. In July 2000, a 15-year-old boarder named Shannon Ainsley was about to catch a wave when a shark launched its attack. As he reaches the crest of the wave, the great white strikes from below. Luckily, the shark disappeared after its initial strike, and Shannon miraculously escaped with only a minor hand injury. Other surfers have been less fortunate. Andrew Carter was catching waves at Nahoon when a shark targeted him. Using sensory cells that run along the length of its body, a shark can detect vibrations in the water caused by the erratic movements of injured prey or swimming humans. Once stimulated, the shark's brain is able to pinpoint the direction and distance of its target and home in. The shark that sensed Andrew was a great white.
I'd been out in the water around 20 minutes. I'd just caught a wave, then I was paddling back out to the outside, pretty much out there. And without any warning, I was just suddenly hit from my left-hand side. It was a tremendous impact. It pulled me right out the water, and the shark had my leg and my surfboard in a sandwich. Obviously the weight of the shark still holding on to me pulled me underwater with it. Feeling of helplessness. You can't even fight back. You're in deep water and this thing's going to eat you alive. You know, it was absolutely horrific. I was holding on the board so tightly that when the shark opened its jaws to get a bigger bite, I literally popped out of its mouth, and the buoyancy of my board bounced me up to the surface, and then the luck of the draw, this wave broke, and it was in a split second. It was turn around and caught it, and I'm pretty certain that if I hadn't caught that wave, I would have been right there. The shark would have come back and probably would have been history. The whole way in, I was just thinking, I was just waiting for it to happen again, and it was only literally when I got right onto the rocks and I could see the rocks underneath me that I just had this unbelievable elation that I was actually safe. I was going to get away from it. Then I lay down, and that was kind of where the first time I thought, right, now how bad have I been bitten? And when I turned around, I saw this like red line of blood behind me. I was like, okay, this is pretty serious.
It took just one bite to inflict a wound that needed over 250 stitches.
As you can see by the bite on the surfboard here, I was lying on the board, so it actually matches the bite on my leg, matches the bite on the board. The bottom of the jaw was on the surfboard and the top of the jaw went around the back of my leg. So from my hip to my knee, the back of my leg here was bitten to the bone and pulled open.
Most hit-and-run attacks may actually be a case of mistaken identity. As it approached from below, the great white that attacked Andrew could have seen a familiar shape on the surface, a shape similar to a prime food source, seal. Chris Fallows has spent the last 10 years observing the sharks at Seal Island.
That was a kill that stretched the whole way from down there to here. The slick's very spread out. It would have been at least half an hour ago, yeah.
He has witnessed hundreds of shark attacks on the Cape fur seals that populate the area.
The seals are probably the shark's main prey in this area because of the abundance, the fact that they give a high energy yield, they've got a large fat content. In this area, they're probably relatively easy for them to catch. Being so close to a very deep drop-off allows the shark to get fairly close to the shore and then do an upward vertical strike. Sharks occasionally mistake surfers for seals. If you look at a large seal and you look at the silhouette from the surface, it is very similar to a guy lying on a 6-foot surfboard with his legs and arms draped over the edges. And you can imagine in relatively dirty water, the shark coming up looks very similar from the bottom, and occasionally they make mistakes.
Even a roughly shaped seal decoy behind Chris's boat is enough to prompt a great white to strike.
Chris Sullivan finds it hard to believe he's still alive, and he's got more than 200 stitches in his leg to remind him of the day he battled with a great white shark and won.
I smacked it one, and every time it came at me after that, I just hit it one, and it like it happened in real life, it buggered off.
British surfer Chris Sullivan became a hit-and-run shark victim while on holiday in South Africa.
Absolutely beautiful, mate. It really is. It's amazing. It's just like I've got a mountain on one side of this house and a beach on the other side, and it's just superb, mate. It really is. And the people are chilled and everything. The sharks are a bit hungry, but. And I can just remember pulling my leg out of the shark's mouth and feeling it just going through like that. But again, it was detached. There was no pain. I don't remember feeling pain. And I just remember there was a slight bit of resistance, but not much at all, as a leg just pulled through its teeth like that. The skin was all sort of open like this. It put a groove in the bone, and you could see all the bone and everything on the beach. And then obviously it took a chunk here, and they had to take a skin graft from here to put on there.
Chris believes that as soon as the shark bit him, it realized it had made a mistake.
I was obviously sat on my board about here, and as I saw the shark, I just give it a boot, obviously with the bad leg, and so it's obviously got a bit of this leg and the board. You know what I mean? And I think it's obviously getting a taste of the board, taste of the wetsuit, and everything. It's just thought, that's not right, you know. That's not what I'm after. I stole that off a lamppost in Cape Town from the Cape Argos. I stared into jaws of death. I never said that, by the way.
In most of the shark attacks that we see on surfers or other recreational water users who are on the surface, virtually 70+% of the time the shark actually rejects the prey item and there's no fatal attack. So it's showing that these animals have realized they've made a mistake and are actually letting the prey item go. Obviously, a white shark is an immensely powerful and large animal, and even an investigatory bite can sometimes be fatal.
While Andrew Carter received first aid following his attack at Nahoon Reef, his fellow surfers noticed that the shark had targeted another victim.
One of my friends arrived, he'd been in the water, he came running over after he got out, and I remember him telling me that somebody else had been bitten.
And as I came round the corner onto the concrete path here, just a little way up the rocks, a fellow that I know, John Bourne, was shouting, "Help, help, somebody's been bitten, somebody's been bitten." And I could see next to John Bourne was Bruce Corby.
Bruce was probably another 15 meters further out on his own, and he was probably the last person to react to the shouts for shark. So unfortunately, the only way in was straight sort of past where the attack had taken place, and he was paddling as fast as he could to get back in, and the shark came up behind him and just pretty much the same as it did to me, but from behind, and took a big bite.
As I got right there to him, his leg was completely missing, completely severed.
I think he pretty much passed out within 5 or 10 seconds, and Nick and a couple of the guys gave him mouth-to-mouth and resuscitated him, resuscitated his heart and pulse and that, but not, I think he remained unconscious from then on.
Bruce Corby suffered massive blood loss and later died in hospital. The double attack had a lasting effect on the Nahoon Reef surfers.
All of us had post-traumatic stress. Some guys have, surfed a bit less since then, surfed a bit less, don't surf anymore. Some guys have got out the water. I surf here plenty. I love this break. I can't leave the sea. The sea is for me, I'm for the sea. And sharks, this is their territory. I'm a visitor in their territory. I take the risks as they come. Like I say, I'm a visitor, he belongs there. He gets first say.
Hidden beneath the sea, much of the shark's world remains a mystery. Though most spend their lives cruising the oceans alone, sharks do congregate in favored hunting areas, gathering groups to mate. And females converge in nursery grounds to give birth. When humans stray into these areas, they might fall victim to territorial behavior. And the results can be devastating. In this situation, is it really fair to say the shark was unprovoked? Hit-and-run attacks may simply be a case of mistaken identity. But what about when the shark comes back for more? The second kind of unprovoked shark attack is called a sneak attack. A sneak attack will happen suddenly, and unlike a hit and run, the shark returns to bite its victim repeatedly. The result? Multiple and often fatal wounds. Sneak attacks usually take place in deeper waters, and victims tend to be swimmers, or more often, divers. Abalone is a highly prized shellfish. It's a delicacy and commands top prices in many parts of the world. So for the abalone divers of Port Lincoln on the South Australian coast, the rewards of their tough job are high, but so are the risks. Kim Penolurik has had 6 close encounters with great whites while working on the seabed.
I'm out on this rubble in 60 feet and one came up to me and it was just, you just couldn't believe your eyes. You're thinking, you know, was it a dolphin? But no, it wasn't. It was the big one, and it was huge.
Divers who commercially harvest abalone do tend to sometimes figure relatively highly in some of the attack statistics for some parts of the world. They're diving in places where often, you know, the whole methodology of going about their work puts them at risk of being spotted by white sharks and potentially being investigated or bitten by them.
They go out right onto the edge of your vision and then turns and comes back. And as those big teeth come past you, you're just looking, whoa. And usually they come up pretty close, so you get a really good look at what's happening. And after he's done it 3-4 times, you're starting to get really rattled. You are rattled, and there's nowhere to go, and nothing to hide behind.
Great whites have exceptional sight, and they see in colour. Their long-distance vision is so good that they can spot a diver long before he sees it.
I might have seen 6, but that could be 60 that have seen me. Often feel that they're just waiting for you to jump up off the bottom and sort of head for the surface, which make you easy target.
The threat to spear fishermen is at its greatest once they have speared their prey. A shark can sense the blood and distress signals of a struggling wounded fish from up to 5,000 meters. Former Australian spearfishing champion Rodney Fox survived a savage sneak attack by a great white shark.
I was 23 years of age, and in the South Australian Spearfishing Championships in 1963, there were 40 divers in the water spearing fish, lots of blood in the water. I know I needed a special species, so I swam out further than the other people, dived down, and I was swimming along the bottom when I saw one. When I was just about to pull the trigger, this huge crash hit me.
As a great white attacks, its head is thrust back, the lower jaw moves down, and the snout lifts, creating a massive, gaping mouth. Next, the upper jaw and the teeth are thrust forward, and the lower jaw clamps down, exerting a force of 3 tons per square centimetre.
I was wearing a matted woolen jumper underneath a thick wetsuit at the time, and the shark bit right through. Every rib in my chest was broken. They put 26 stitches in my lung. The spleen was uncovered. The main artery from the heart to the stomach was uncovered. And they just thought that I might die from either shock or from shock from loss of blood. Another minute or so, and they said that I wouldn't have had enough blood left. It was a miracle survival.
The attack changed Rodney's life. Far from wanting revenge, he vowed to learn more about the creatures, and is now a leading shark conservationist, running research trips with his marine biologist son, Andrew.
There's still a lot of mystery and misunderstanding about sharks, in particular to shark attack issues. And the more that we can use our expeditions to help with research, that's going to help with the knowledge of the sharks.
If we had more of an understanding of them and knew what they were doing, there'd be a lot less fear. But it's only sharks like the great white that people take much notice of, because it's going to eat you.
Conservationists believe that by 2020, at least 20 species of shark could be extinct. 125 countries around the world trade in shark products. In the Far East, shark fins, used to make soup, are worth £140 per pound. In the last 50 years, the slaughter of sharks has risen by 400% due to hunting and indiscriminate fishing techniques.
It's staggering when you see these animals actually piled up on the side of fish markets. And this is just at individual ports around the world. Put it all together to make that figure a conservative estimate of 100 million each year, and the risk of extinction for some species of sharks is growing closer every day.
The great white is now a protected species in Australia, South Africa, and the USA. It is a criminal offence to kill one. Even if a great white kills a human, it is let off. In this case, the trial seems weighted in the shark's favour. This angers those who think the protection of dangerous sharks will lead to more fatal attacks.
They've painted a picture of the great white as a little teddy bear now. You know, it's a beautiful creature, it's endangered. We have to protect it. We have to protect it. Now, what a joke. The way it's going, with no responsibility to killer sharks, that means they're not being removed at the site after somebody's killed. That's the only chance we got of removing them. And that's not happening, it's just getting worse and worse. It's out of hand.
For the victim, the third type of unprovoked shark attack is the most terrifying of all. In a bump and bite attack, the shark will first circle and bump its prey before moving in to strike repeatedly. Bump and bites are nearly always fatal. "77-year-old Tina Webb loved nothing more than her early morning swim at Fishhook Bay near Cape Town.
She used to come down every morning, about 6:30, going on 7 o'clock, in her white beach gown. So she used to go fairly far out. And that was a pattern every day.
On the 16th of November 2004, Tina was swimming at Fishhook when a great white targeted her. Spotters for local fishermen were on a cliff top overlooking the bay. They could see the shark approaching Mrs. Webb, but were powerless to help.
He said he saw the shark coming in from the far side. He saw the lady swimming close inshore here, down the bottom there. He saw it and he saw the shark swimming towards you. En dan?
Die shark het die vrou so stam. So het geswem so op haar rug. En dan voel hy dis iets wat ons beweeg en maar ons stuk van after.
Okay. He saw the shark approach Mrs. Webb. The shark bumped her. She stopped, tried to ascertain what it was. The shark then circled underneath her and then came up and took her on the side. He took her again on the side there and then moved her out further deepward. The water was very red at the time, and all that was visible was a red bathing cap. It was still in the water.
In this type of attack, there seemed to be no mitigating circumstances. The shark killed Tina deliberately. Inspector Leon McDooling was the first police officer on the scene.
The beach was closed for the whole day, and the police, helicopters, boats, divers, for hours through the day tried to find any other trace, but there was no trace of anybody.
Locals firmly believe that the shark that killed Tina Webb is no stranger to the bay.
Now, this shark is a 5-meter shark. It is a great white. It has a pattern and it has habits. And that is why I'm convinced it's the same shark that's been patrolling the area for the past 2 years, definitely.
That one that had a fairly fixed pattern of coming in. It just, on that particular day, he changed his pattern somewhat, coming in straight in from the deep ocean.
In the past 17 years, we had probably 3 shark scare alerts. In the past 3 years, we probably had 20 shark scare alerts.
Concerns over increased shark activity have also been raised on the west coast of Australia. Lawyer Brian Sierakowski and his friend John Hanrahan were enjoying their regular early morning paddle on a surf ski at Perth's Cottesloe Beach.
We were out about 200 metres off this groin here, waiting for some swell to come through so we could catch some waves. When the shark attacked from the shore side and actually lurched itself up onto my ski, which is 18 feet long. It was like a pencil in its mouth. I was just forced off my ski and into the water. And I came up. So I can remember saying, "Please don't eat me, please don't eat me."
The two men were rescued by fellow surf ski paddlers, and as the shark circled close by, made it to the safety of the beach.
We then got into an area here about 25 metres where we could stand up, looked out to sea, and there was the shark alongside my ski, and we just hugged each other.
Brian soon returned to the water. What seemed to have been a unique event was greeted with good humour by the locals at Cottesloe.
Lovely and refreshing. Well done, son.
But just 3 years later, the mood turned sour.
It was savage, it was quick, and it came from nowhere. A massive white pointer on a grey misty Cottesloe morning. It charged first at 49-year-old Ken Crew, taking his whole leg with just one bite.
Father of three, Ken Crew, was a member of the Pod, a group of Perth businessmen who swam every morning at Cottesloe Beach.
I remember Ken saying to me just before we went in, you know, "I think there's something out in the water," and I said, "Oh, look, it's probably only a dolphin or a seal because you get a few of those around. Look, let's go." So we went, started swimming down, and Ken's a fairly strong swimmer, so he was probably in front of me. The next thing I remember is just seeing a mountain of water go up in the air and him coming down, and there was just that sort of brownish red colour in the water.
Inflicted 3 enormous bites on Ken, taking the calf muscle, then the thigh, the whole of the left thigh, and then his right leg, just ripped it off. With that frenzy that was going on, it then turned on another.
All I recall was that there was this big dorsal fin coming towards him, because he was in not much water, was turning on his side to get a grip at me, and had my left foot in his mouth. So I pushed with my other foot, my right foot, and yanked it out, and then managed to back out of the water.
Fremantle lawyer Dirk Avery made it to shore with deep wounds to his feet. Tonight, he's in a stable condition. Mr Crew's wife Robin and...
A second attack so close to shore prompted fears that a large shark had returned to Cottesloe and was targeting humans in a worrying departure from normal behaviour.
It clearly knew what it was after. If that shark becomes a rogue shark and becomes territorial and enters a swimmer's beach, then you've got to do something about it, particularly if it stays around for days, which it did.
It sounds like an idea straight out of Jaws, but 2 more fatal attacks in Western Australia on surfer Bradley Smith and boat skipper Jeff Brazier have made people ask, do rogue sharks really exist? Rogue shark theory suggests that a large predatory shark stays close to shore in order to prey on humans. There is little evidence to back this claim. But recent tagging of great whites has uncovered interesting results about their movements.
They tend to fall into 2 camps of behaviour. They will roam far and wide, literally thousands of kilometres in some cases. They also, though, will show short-term residency at selected sites. Often the same sites being revisited year on year, often on the same week of each year, by the same sharks, coming back there for whatever reasons. Now, that does not mean that that particular shark returning to the same place again and again suddenly is a rogue shark, because shark attacks would be occurring in the same places all the time if these rogue sharks were always going back there, particularly with human beings being such a vulnerable prey species to take out.
The jury may be out on the issue of rogue sharks, but there is a concern that our own behaviour may be responsible for increasing shark attacks. It's a view held by shark victim Chris Sullivan. He has taken to the water for the first time since his attack, joining Chris Fallows at Seal Island.
Very little seal activity, eh? Look on the left, right? Yeah, it's a definite kill.
What effect is man having on the behavior of the great whites in the area?
And the problem is there's been huge amounts of fishing going on.
Yeah, I've heard that.
So they've wiped out the usual prey species of the white shark, so it's going to be a big problem. And, you know, it's one of the things government really needs to address. It's certainly not going to mean they're going to change their diet. You know, this is an animal that's been around for several million years. But they're going to have to probably work harder to find their natural food source and probably move into areas where they weren't going into before. It's not the shark's fault, it's our fault. It's our fault for interfering with nature.
There may be more obvious ways that we're encouraging sharks to see us as prey. People go out of their way to get close to dangerous sharks. Shark tourism is booming, and thousands of people have experienced the thrill of cage diving with great whites. The sharks are often lured towards the people by pouring a blood mixture called chum into the sea. In South Africa, many surfers believe that this practice could be encouraging sharks to associate humans with food.
I believe that a lot of surfers think that that has got something to do with it. Either with the fishing or with the shark diving and the chumming of the water and sharks associating people with blood and food and stuff.
And they're looking around and seeing these things with 2 legs and 2 arms. Hey, there's got to be some food around here somewhere. Bang.
The fact is, there's no evidence that that's actually happening at all. Shark attacks on that part of the coast have been happening for decades and decades, long before people were actually going out trying to view white sharks or trying to bait them in with charm or baits to view them.
Man and shark seem destined to be locked in conflict. So are there solutions that can save lives? In the past, the only way to reduce attacks has been to protect beaches with shark nets. But nets also kill other forms of marine life, such as turtles, dolphins, and whales. For decades, science has been searching for new technology that will provide an alternative to netting. Mike Wescombe Down, an engineer based in Adelaide, believes he has created an effective personal shark deterrent. His motivation to do this comes from an event he witnessed as a teenager.
We used to spear fish, and they used to have spearfishing competitions. And I remember on this particular occasion, I think I was 15 or 16, there was evidence that something was in the water. People were talking about it. I'm sure I saw it about 83 times, as you do when you spook. But it was only when I came out of the water to dump some fish that I saw this crowd on the beach. And they were just on the water's edge. They had a surf ski, and on the surf ski was this guy that I knew, my age, except that he was half missing. And I suppose that left a big impression on everyone and made me hate sharks.
Mike calls his invention the Shark Shield. It works by sending an electro-pulse through the water that repels sharks.
If you think of it as a rock dropped in a lake, and it spreads out these little waves of energy, and our unit's doing the same thing in the water. The shark enters the area, hits this field, it's unpleasant, it's unfamiliar, it's not on its list, and it turns away.
After years of development, Mike's Shark Shield was put through its final and most dangerous stage of testing.
This shark came straight towards him. And then about 5 metres away, it stopped dead, did a U-turn and took off.
Mike hopes to adapt his idea to create an electronic barrier that could one day replace shark nets. But he has a warning for anyone using his invention who thinks they are completely safe.
But it's possible to say that with an animal, it doesn't always follow the rules. It can never really feel 100% relaxed. But there could be the odd situation where a shark's exceedingly hungry or agitated or has been stimulated by blood, and it may give them a nasty scare.
Oh. Yeah, that was a classic kill situation. A shark does a full breach.
This guy gave me a shark shield. Have you heard of them? Seen them?
Yeah.
Do you think they work?
Oh, do you want my honest answer? Some of them work quite well, but they're not foolproof at all. The last few seconds before a full speed attack, nobody's ever tested it that far.
And there is one person who certainly remains unconvinced.
That's why none of these silly things you hear about, like the electric impulse shock and that, to scare sharks away. They'll work on television as an ad because the sharks aren't interested in eating anyone. I mean, they point it at them and they'll buzz off. But a shark, when they go into attack mode, there's no stopping them. So none of those things will ever work. Trouble is you can't come back and complain, can you? That it didn't work. They want your money back.
Looking at the evidence, it is obvious that there is still a long way to go before sharks and humans can happily coexist. We may have studied sharks for hundreds of years, but they still remain a mystery to us.
And the only thing you can really say about them is that their predictability is totally unpredictable.
We have found that sharks and humans are guilty of unprovoked killing, but one is far guiltier than the other. Every year, sharks kill around 10 people. In that same time, we will slaughter more than 100 million sharks.
It's a safe bet that with the sheer fragility of the world's ocean ecosystems, to remove, a once numerous top predator like a shark is going to have a profound effect.
The reality is that humans are the most intelligent animals on the planet. It is up to us to find solutions. We also have to ask ourselves if we want to live in a world devoid of any truly wild animals.
Just like we keep lions and all the rest of the wild animals alive, they kill a lot of people. There's a reason for the great whites being in the ocean. Maybe it keeps the crowds away.
Sharks are just cool fish, just make the ocean this enigmatic place that we absolutely love.
Sharks are the thing that inspires people and makes their heart beat faster.
They are the animal we most love to hate. Do we really want to destroy such a terrifying, iconic creature as the shark?